Welcome, everyone, to Write Hive 2026. This panel is What Writers Know About Libraries from Librarians. And we are so excited to have these excellent librarian speakers with us. I'm going to have each panelist introduce himself, and then we are going to jump into the questions. And so, first, I'm going to ask Heather to step up.
Hello, I'm Heather. Go by HM Joinville. That's pen name. Um, uh, I was a school librarian in Denver, and I currently work as a historical blog writer and content analyst for a primary source educational publisher. And I published in Right Hive's last anthology, Surviving Humanity. My story is The Lucky One, and I'm currently querying a apocalyptic apocalyptic horror novel, Harvest. Yeah.
Okay, hi. My name is Lisa Rabey. I am a public librarian. I've also been an academic librarian, a digital librarian, and an archivist. So, not except for like Heather, I did not go the school librarian route. Currently, I work as a public librarian up here in Northern Michigan, and I'm also a writer. I currently am in a few anthologies. I write primarily romance, both contemporary and historical, and paranormal. And I also write cozy mysteries, historical cozy mysteries as well. And what else do I do? I am really into Jane Austen, heaving bosom books, and working my way through Paul Hollywood's cookbooks. So that's me.
Nice. Gotta do what the bread man tells you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those piercing blue eyes, you can't not want to do something.
All right. So, without further ado, we will dive into our questions. And our first question is, if authors want to submit their own books to libraries, what are some considerations to keep in mind before they reach out to librarians? And
Yep. First, is mainly a distribution. School librarians don't usually, unless like extraordinary circumstances, we don't order books off Amazon. We usually order them with wholesale distributors, so Ingram, Baker Taylor, Follett, any kind of major distributor like that. You want to make sure that it's available to order through one of those pathways. Make sure it has an ISBN number, a barcode. If you're an indie publisher, if you can get a MARC record for it, even better. You can reach out to a group called the Donahue Group that does MARC records, and also ideally make sure it's available in hardcover or library binding because I've seen middle schoolers hurl a book across the room. They take wear and tear, probably more than like regular library books. So you want to make sure that it's available in a hardcover or library binding.
I echo everything Heather says, except I'm going to have a few discrepancies for public libraries and academic libraries. Public libraries typically don't buy library binding books because they are beyond expensive, and we do all our own internal processing. Um, Baker and Taylor no longer exists, but to also echo on what Heather says, you have to be in a major wholesale distributor, such as Ingram. If you want to get your ebook or audiobook in, you have to submit yourself to both Libby and Hoopla. And there's information on their website. And so libraries cannot purchase directly from Amazon. So we have to purchase through our distributors, especially primarily for ebooks and audiobooks. There's also services out there if you want to do large print. There's also services out there if you want to do physical audiobooks as well. Libraries will accept donations, but the donations can only be in physical media. Well,
yeah,
I should say they will not always accept donations, but you have a greater chance of your book getting into the collection if you donate the title.
yeah, as opposed to donating an ebook, which I imagine is complicated.
Yeah, they can't. The reason why is that Libby works primarily with Amazon directly. So, but we can't buy through Amazon, but we buy through Libby, who then sources the books from Amazon. And then, so that's how that whole circle goes.
Okay,
So,
this is an off-book question, so if you don't have a ready answer or want to just nix it, tell me and I'll say no. Um, I see a lot of books in libraries that look like they are maybe like free on Amazon. Is that something that libraries have easier access to potentially? Being able, even if they're coming through Libby, how does that pay structure potentially work? It is a
There is
free to
no
read.
there's no pay structure.
Okay.
When libraries buy an item, whether it's a physical item or a digital item,
Mhm.
we're just a consumer. So the author does not get any royalties as many times as the book circulates, nothing. As far as the author is concerned, we just bought a book
Mhm.
or a audiobook or
Mhm.
what have you. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's no distribution royalty statements that come through.
So if it's free on Amazon, then it's free to you through Libby, basically, or
No,
no?
nope,
Okay.
no. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
No, yeah, no worries.
You're an author
Mhm.
and you want to get your book into the digital collections that libraries can buy. You have to go through Libby or Hoopla, which is the
Mhm.
two primary distributors of ebooks that libraries use.
Mhm.
Libraries cannot buy books from you cannot buy ebooks from Amazon because we don't have any kind of method to obtain those books to get to our
Mhm.
patrons.
Right.
So there is now, it used to be that if an author had a book on Kindle Unlimited,
Mhm.
they could not source it to other distributors like
Mm.
B&N or Kobo or what have you.
Mhm.
Amazon has loosened those restrictions. So
Mm.
you can now have a book on Kindle Unlimited and you can also have a book on Libby, but they're two separate beasts.
Mhm.
So you're responsible for whatever you have on Amazon, but you have to do the work to get it up into Libby.
Okay.
Libraries can only work with Libby and Hoopla. We can't use Amazon directly.
All right, all right. Which some of this was also lightly covered in this one. What information would authors potentially want to have on hand before approaching library staff to either donate a book or request that the library acquire it? Is there any research that authors should do in advance? Heather, you had talked a little bit about like the ISBNs and things like that. Um,
Um, Honestly, I think when you're pitching to a librarian, librarians and teachers work really closely together. Um, they're pretty much a team, much like an agent and a publisher. So when you're pitching to a librarian, it'd be great to come to them as you would come to querying a book to an agent. Have like how a query letter has like your metadata, your personalization, your summary, your bio. You should also have all that information for a librarian. You should have your book title, how the ISBN number, how where they can what distributor they can get it through, how much it costs, and then you should go into like a personalization. How does this book fit within the curriculum? If you can tie in your book to an actual Common Core curriculum or an event like a biopic author tying in a book to Black History Month or a historical event if you have a YA historical fiction novel tied into a major historical event or anniversary, something they can work into in the classroom. You can go from having a librarian purchase one book for the library to a bulk sale possibly for classrooms. So you want to include exactly how it fits into the curriculum. You want to have a summary of what the book's about. Possibly, I would dare say, throw in a couple of, I wouldn't say trigger warnings, but like possible things that could come up in the book,
mhm.
just so the librarian's aware of it, because we don't want to be blindsided.
Content
Um,
notes, content
Content
notes.
notes, exactly. And then if you can include at the bottom where you would, like a query letter, like your biography, include has this book won any awards? Has it been reviewed by a library journal? Has it, like a little bit of information about you as the author? If you're selling it, if you can sell yourself and sell the book to the librarian, it helps them be able to sell it then to the teacher.
Mhm.
And if something also comes up, say down the line on terms of a challenge of the book, that gives them additional ammunition, or to be able to back up why they accepted the book
Mhm.
in the first place, and it
Yeah,
gives them some ammunition to go to bat for you.
yeah.
Um, And so if you can have a pitch ready before you come to them, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm gonna add on to Heather's for public libraries. So everything Heather said is absolutely 100. You should have it all on a single sheet of paper. Don't give like the one thing I noticed when I've interviewed authors in the past is they're a wordy bunch. Like it's kind of
What?
crazy. I know, right? But it's just crazy as hell. I was interviewing authors for a writer's chapter I did social media for, and I had a set of questions and I would ask them for their bio, and I would get like a page long bio. Like nobody cares. Like give me if you can't describe yourself
Cliff
in 50
notes.
words or less, we're no one's got time to read that. Anyways, to, I'm gonna echo everything Heather said, but put it on a one page and have
Mhm.
everything you want. The title, the author, the ISBN number for all the formats, your contact information. They do basically by contact information, your email address, website, and phone number is fine. They're not going to go to your social media. So maybe they will, but I can't speak for school librarians because I'm sure they've got a lot like more stringent vetting they have to do for the authors that they bring in. But for public libraries, we don't have that kind of time. And then your summary and then quote, then reviews and what have you. Um, the big thing for public libraries, though, is that our catalogs are open to the public and you do not have to have an account to search. So if you're writing romantasy, your best bet is to go to our catalog and do a quick search for author comps. So if your author comp is like Rebecca Yarros or Sarah J. Maas or whoever, see if that library carries that in their collection. Because if they don't, they're not going to consider getting your book because it doesn't fit into their collection. And it's kind of a pain because you're going to have to do this for literally almost every library because libraries cater to their communities. So, for example, at my library, it's a small library. We do have like a very large, like new shelf that or new bookcase.
Mhm.
Um, and so we carry a lot of popular fiction, mystery, what have you titles. But our readers really love thrillers and mysteries. Also large print because we have an aging population here. Westerns also do really well for us as well, but not,
Interesting.
yeah, it's really kind of crazy. But like sci-fi and fantasy, graphic novels don't really circulate.
Mhm.
Um, Romance has started to circulate since more titles are coming into publication. You know what I mean? Like it very our what we carry at our library is completely different than a neighboring library.
Mhm.
And we've had authors who've like written us these like 10-page like send like HTML emails to the library and it looks like it looks like a brochure is the easiest way to explain it. But there's a couple things that you could tell. One, they're mass selling this to every library they can get their fingers on. Two, they're not doing that research
Mhm.
because the genre that this author was promoting for themselves is not a genre that we carry some titles, but we don't have like a large
Mhm.
collection.
Right.
And they would have not, if they would have spent 30 seconds searching our catalog and seeing we don't have their author comps, then they would have not have to have emailed us because we're not picking up the book. It's just that
Mhm.
simple. So definitely everything Heather said, plus research, the library's collections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off that also reminded me that we're going to use the B word of ban.
Mhm.
When you're going to different schools and different school districts, look and see what the current bans are, like what the environment is. Doesn't mean you can't submit a book into a place that has a ban, but you kind of want to know what you're getting into before you jump in.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. In our collections where I'm located at, surprisingly for a rural area, we haven't had, fingers crossed,
I know, right? Knock
um,
on wood.
knock on wood, fingers crossed, we haven't had any challenges to the titles that we keep.
Mhm.
yet.
Yeah.
There have been some challenges for a couple of titles in surrounding libraries, but those have always, they've gone to the public and the public is like, no, keep the book. So we haven't had that issue up here where I'm located at. But Heather is 100% correct. Like you need to check and see if your book falls under a book that's being challenged at that library
Mhm.
before considering to submit it.
Yeah, it's not a give up, but it's a maybe use your time
More
differently
wisely.
for now. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
and hope that things
Pick your battle.
change and yeah, pick your battle. Yeah, yeah. And would it then also make sense because you're talking about how you have like a big new reads shelf kind of thing, potentially also you're looking at comps, maybe don't only look at the sort of top line highest selling comps, but may also look all a little bit lower as well
Mhm.
for like more accessible comps because maybe you carry Rebecca Yarros, but maybe you don't carry Shelley. I don't know. I'm trying to think of random other author. She's very big also, but like you know what I'm saying. It's like yes, this is
Yeah.
the hugest one, the TikTok sensation, but maybe you don't carry the one that is closer to what the author is producing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I haven't queried yet.
Mhm.
I'm not at that stage in my writing career to query to agents, so I'm
Yeah.
not. Heather might be able to speak to this
Mhm.
more than I can. But one thing that a lot of libraries are doing is bringing in like mid-list authors
Mhm.
and starting to carry them so that we have a wider selection outside of your big names. So, for
Nice.
example, um, Emily Henry, huge romance author. She's an automatic buy for us. But then we
Mhm.
started buying like smaller authors
Mhm.
um like Talia Hibbert
Mhm.
and Catherine Center. Like they're big, but
Mhm.
they're not like Emily Henry big. But they're
Colleen
great when we do.
Hoover, like
Yeah, yeah, we have Colleen. Yeah, Colleen Hoover comes out with a new title. She gets sucked right into the
James
vortex.
Patterson.
But
James Patterson.
oh my gosh, James Patterson has his own bookshelf. Like I'm not, I wish, at least in our library, because we're a small library the way we were set up, he's got several shelves in fiction because he does write contemporary fiction. But for his thrillers and mysteries, he literally has his own bookcase because he has
Unbelievable.
so
But
much that, and he's a huge circulating item. So
it's like you said, you're buying for your
community,
patrons.
yep,
You're buying for
absolutely.
your community. So this is what it is. And so, like you said, then it's worth even physically if you can walking around the bookshelves and seeing what is there.
Yeah,
Just like
exactly.
publishers, they want to sell books. We want circulation, and if a book's not going to circulate, we have to take that into consideration.
There's only
Yeah,
so much you can
absolutely.
do
Because
to make sure.
shelf space is sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the state of Michigan, I've lived in several states. I don't know if this works. Heather is going to probably have to chime in on my response because um, let me go back to what I was saying. So in interlibrary loan is huge.
Mhm. Okay.
Mhm.
And each state interlibrary loan means that library A doesn't have the book, but we can source it from library B
Hmm.
and it gets shipped to library A, gets to the patron and what
Hmm.
have you, and then it gets
Right.
shipped back to library B. Anyways, in the state of Michigan, we have a really extensive interlibrary loan system. Any patron can access it. They log in with their library card, they search for a title, and it gets shipped to their home library. That goes across 400 Michigan libraries, both
Hmm.
academic and public. Not every state does it the way that we do it, but interlibrary loan is available through everywhere. So that is something that's really huge, is that if you can't get your book into library A, don't give up and not try to get it in another library because if a patron at library A can't get the book, they'll request it through interlibrary loan, and that counts as a circulation.
Hmm.
So the more, like Heather had said, the more that your book circulates, the more likely we're going to look at your backlist and start bringing in those titles as well. So always look for it as a way to do kind of like free promotion,
Hmm.
I guess. So interlibrary loan is huge. And then we have a couple Montessori schools that are in the area that heavily use interlibrary loan to get titles for their classrooms. So that's also something to consider is when you are working with classrooms, also taking consideration that if you can't get your book into a library, into school A, if they have the ability to do interlibrary loan, they can get the book for them as well. But that's something that Heather will have to speak to.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly I don't remember. I do not think that we had dealt with that much when I was a school librarian. Um, about doing inter. I know we were all in the same system,
Mhm.
and we had like a regular kind of meetings where we got together and we discussed books, what new books were coming out, and what books were popular in our schools.
Mhm.
But I don't think that we ever had where we could check out books from other schools and have them shipped.
Yeah.
I
But
could
those
be wrong with other
discussions at
schools.
least are meaningful though, because then that shows that you're collaborating in terms of the statistics, in terms of who
Yeah,
is checking out what. And so if like Lisa was saying, then potentially if one school has a lot of action with one particular book or set of books, then other schools might be persuaded to purchase those
exactly.
books as well. So
Oh, yeah, and there's another thing too I can throw in on this topic. Again, rural area, small patronage community, but we do have local schools, public
mhm,
schools, who have cards at our library. And so the teacher will, the public school is probably like 3 blocks from the library.
mm,
And they do have a school library, but the teachers and the aides will bring the students to our library. They have a single library card for the classroom.
oh,
Students can pick out the books that they're interested in and check them out. And then obviously the adults for the classroom is responsible for all the titles and what have you. But this gives an opportunity for the kids to see what else is outside and they're not able to get in their
mhm,
get in their school library as well. So,
yeah.
and I also know that the classrooms also have a small classroom library as well, which is another reason why they come to our library is to get titles.
Yeah. So know your community, know who lives there, who works there,
Mhm.
who is doing these things. Like the more that you know, the better able you're going to be to potentially approach people about stuff, which is our next question, which I'm now going to scoot us over to. What process should authors follow when it comes to making contact, and how might that vary between libraries and
Okay, so academic libraries do not typically take requests from the public
Mhm,
because they're more or less like a private library system. Their collection is based upon their academic community. They'll take probably books donated from professors,
mhm,
but more than likely, they're not going to purchase from the public.
mhm,
And they're going to be using wholesale distributors or other distributors to get their titles. So academic libraries also typically don't carry general fiction unless they're like a large university system like U of M or MSU. They might have like a general fiction collection. So, but even still, the same process applies to that. For public libraries, this is kind of a tricky question. The reason being is that every single library has a completely different system on how to approach them. And that is going to be the bane of your existence as a writer trying to get your books into libraries. So, a couple things. So, here's some things to keep in mind or do. The first thing is check out the library's website. A lot of libraries now have a specific email address or a form for authors who want to submit their books for the library's collection. Definitely, that's the first thing you want to do. Second thing is this one's tough. Don't cold call the library, primarily because the person that you're speaking with is not going to be the person who makes the decisions to buy the collection. Typically, there is one person or two persons per library who make collection decisions, and they're not always going to be the front-facing librarians. Can you cold call and make a request to speak to that person? Sure, but just be mindful you may not get a response. Email is okay, but make sure that you do your research like we had talked about earlier and that you've got your ducks in a row and that your document, very important. We call it a sell sheet. Your sell sheet is 1 page long and in PDF. Don't embed any HTML, but you're going to, like Heather had said, you have to sell yourself to the library. So a good way to do it is, hey, or not hey, but hello, whatever. Yeah, don't be like super, hey, how's it
Hey.
going? Like they're gonna be like,
Duh.
maybe not. Um, Introduce yourself, very brief bio, and then make your pitch. This is why my book would be great for your collection. Whether it's because it's a local tie-in, let's say you're a local author. In my area, all the bookstores and the libraries up here carry local author or local interest shelving. So if you're a local author, that's a big pitch. If your book fits in with their collection, that's a big pitch. And if you've done the research the and checked the collection, you saw that the comp authors were there, list the comp authors just as if you would in a query letter. Make sure your email is very to the point and brief. So make sure that you're doing an elevator pitch, right? So you've got that all down and you email it to the address. Now, the big one is follow up. When do you follow up? And was that a question already, Valerie?
It
That
wasn't, but please answer it because
okay.
yes, we did.
So we've had authors call the library and said, "Hey, I emailed you a couple days ago. Any response?" And the answer is going to be no.
Days?
I know. Public libraries, we're understaffed, we're underpaid. We don't sit around and read books. I was getting my hair done a couple months ago and I was talking to my hairstylist and she said, "Oh, what do you do?" Because, she and I were new. And I said, "Oh, I'm a librarian at such and such library." And she goes, "Oh, so you sit around and read books all day?" And I'm like, "No, no."
If only.
Yeah. I sat down and read Book Pages, which is an industry magazine about upcoming titles with reviews and such. And I felt guilty reading just the reviews of upcoming books. So no, we don't have time to do books. Um, I would say if you're going to if you haven't heard from the library, do a follow-up. I would say 3 to 4 weeks. That gives them enough time to go through the email, make the decisions or what have you. Um, Stopping into the library is can be fruitful. Ask to speak to the collections librarian. That's the term you want to use, the collections librarian, or the director, because the director may also be the collections librarian, depending upon how small the library is. And to be honest, if you bring a copy of your book with you and donate it to the library, your chances of getting your book in the library are quite high. If you can make the selling if you can make that sell to the director, the collections librarian, why your book is, and your elevator pitch on why your book should be in the collection, chances are that you have a higher chance of it getting accepted and cataloged into their collection. So be, I guess the bottom line is be very respectful of how you're approaching them. And the one size fits all does not work.
Yeah.
So
Respectful also means respectful of their time and how little of it they have.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And if they don't take your book and they say, no, this is not whatever they tell you and they're not taking the title, that's completely fine. There's other libraries, you can approach. One other thing too, and this is a question I've been asked and I don't have an answer for, but it still needs to be addressed. What do you do when the library system has multiple branches?
Mhm.
And because up where I'm at, each library is an independent entity. So we're not a cooperative. And that's pretty common for rural areas. But if you're going into a larger city where library, they have multiple locations, the big thing is that how that library system is going to do book collection is going to vary from system to system. So you might have a library system where all the books are done by one singular location. And chances are you're not going to be able to necessarily get to them because they're going to be like buried deep into the organization. Other library systems allow the branches to go ahead and do their own collection because they're going to know who their community is
Mhm.
better. So if you have a community that has a high Spanish speaking population, they're going to collect more Spanish speaking books. Whereas on the other side of town, you might have a higher collection. You might have a community that speaks German, and they're going to collect more German speaking
Mhm.
titles. Your best bet is to walk in. This is where the walk-in work.
Mhm.
I shouldn't say works, but this is where the walk-in would be helpful. You walk in and say, "Hey, I'm a local author. I whatever you how you want to present yourself. Who do I speak to about donating a copy of my title to your collection?"
Mhm.
And then they'll direct you
Mhm.
on what to do. So whether you
Good.
speak to somebody locally at the branch or they direct you to
Mhm.
um, their centralized location for their titles. So
Yeah, because the local branch may just say you have to go to the main branch and
yeah, exactly, exactly. And the problem, not the problem, but where it gets tricky is that it varies from city to city. So you have no idea um
yep,
how that's going to work. And that's a little scary and it's a little trepidatious. So
gotta fortify, get your courage up.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not in the stage of my career yet where I'm querying, but I have a lot of writer friends who have,
Mhm.
and I'm sure Heather can speak to this as well. I mean, it's scary putting yourself out
Yeah.
there because you have to give the elevator pitch, you have to really sell yourself. And that doesn't stop once your book gets published. You're
Mhm.
on it continuously. So,
A
yeah.
never-ending story.
As
Yeah.
someone who is deeply uncomfortable with like self promotion, it is one of my struggles.
Yep, yep.
I agree. I submit to lit journals um, and um, magazines, and when they ask for a pitch,
Mhm.
I have to spend like a million years writing that pitch over than what I've spent writing the piece because you get one
One
shot.
chance. Yep,
Yeah.
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 So
Eminem
yeah,
song.
yep, yep. So Heather, how then does the process work for school libraries more so than public or academic?
Um, So for school libraries, most schools, like in public libraries, they have a website. And on the website, at least on our school website, it will list the teachers, the subjects, and it will list the librarian. They could be going by librarian, they could be going by media specialist, they could be going by library and media specialist, or I was a library listed on there as a library media paraprofessional. So any of those kind of keywords go for it. And it also had an email address. Unlike public libraries, please do not come to the school.
that's just creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy. Use the email address. If you try to call, you'll get the office, and usually librarians like we have other things we're doing. We might be working with a teacher. We might be you know trying to fix an overhead projector because we're everywhere, we might not be available at the time. So the best bet is use the email. And also, if you're going to try to make your pitch, be aware that like unlike public libraries who are open all year round, school libraries are only open for obviously during school year, and we have a budget. um, and usually they buy books, at least in my experience, we bought books in bulk certain times of the year. So we might have bought books at the beginning of the year and then maybe towards the middle. So if you're coming to pitch a book to me in May, at the end of the school year, when my budget's already blown, and I will promise you, to the best of my ability, I will not remember you come August.
Circle back. Circle
Circle
back.
back.
Yeah.
Come back at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, Heather makes a really good point about budgets. Most public libraries buy throughout the course of the year because, upcoming titles
Mhm.
and, special things that are coming out or whatever. So, but we have a limited budget
Mhm.
and we have a limited amount of space. So if you have a book that you feel is a good fit for a library and it doesn't, and they don't purchase it or accept your donation or what have you, just don't get discouraged. That's just one library that can't take it. And they may feel that the book is a perfect perfect, maybe perfect for their collection, but they may not have the space or the money or whatever to add the book to the collection. So budgets is very important
Mm,
and budgets are shrinking.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
like I think Heather and I keep kind of going back to the same thing. It's all about our community and serving our community the best
right.
is what it boils down to.
Yeah. Maybe after the book sale when shelves might be a little more. No?
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I just made you cry.
maybe you want to find out when they're weeding next, so you can get in
Yeah,
and have a little bit
well,
more space.
I
Oh.
know at my library, weeding is a priority. Like I'm in charge of the large print.
Mhm,
I'm the large print management person. So I'm the person responsible for doing the weeding. And what weeding is that we go through and we make a determination based upon the physicality of the books, whether it's torn, got water stains, or what have
yeah.
you, or its circulation data. How often has it circulated in X amount of time? It varies from library to library. And if the book does not meet our criteria, the book gets pulled from the collection.
Mhm,
And once the book, but with us, we don't have a set time when we read. Like nobody had the opportunity to read the large print collection until I started. And now I have a weekly or I have a monthly cadence where I go in and do the pull all the material, whatever. So, but here's the big thing. And this is a question I also have gotten asked, and this may not be on your list, Valerie.
fine.
If a book, if a library reads your book, can you get the book back? The answer is no. Don't bother asking. It's not going to happen. They're not going to keep a list of all the books that have been donated. Um, what happens to the book after it's been weeded, and this is for public libraries and also academic libraries, so Heather can speak to school libraries. But what ends up happening, the process that we have is that the books get pulled from the collection for whatever reason. They go immediately to the friends group who will stock them for the book sale. And we have one book sale a year that takes up over 2 days, and that's where we get rid of all that back stock. If the book doesn't get sold, it usually sits in the collection. If for some reason we don't put it in with the books to be sold for the book sale, the book then gets put in the little free library and it hangs out there until somebody takes it.
Mhm,
Now, if the book is really damaged, we may make a decision based upon the circulation data if we're going to replace it or not.
mhm,
Regardless if we replace it or not, that book will more or less get trashed. And that's a huge contention with the public because they feel books should not be thrown away. They're paper. It's always about the message. It's not about the media. And that's one thing that I wish the public knew is that we're not just willy-nilly tossing the books out. There is a reason why we're doing this. We have to keep um, the public treats books terribly. They're very hard on them. They use food for bookmarks. Um, I once did a presentation on libraries in the 21st century a couple years ago. I sourced public and academic librarians. What is the weirdest things that patrons have left in books for bookmarks? I had everything from slices of cheese to bacon to pot stems. I mean,
I
it's
heard a
crazy.
sandwich once, like a whole sandwich. Like you left it in there and it got moldy. What are you doing?
Yeah, and at that point, the libraries can only do so much. So books like that are beyond damage. A lot of other libraries will do too, is that they'll sell them through a third-party distributor, Better World Books, one library. Because I actually have a permanent position at one library, but I sub at the other libraries in the county. And one of the libraries I sub at, what they do with books they pull from their collection is they either put it in the book sale or they'll check Better World Books to see if they can get a return on the
Mm,
investment and ship it to Better World, and Better World will pay them for the book title. It's not a lot. It may be
mhm,
like 50 cents or $1 or whatever, but it's more money coming in. So to wrap up this long diatribe, No, you cannot get your book back if the book gets weeded from your collection. End of
Don't
story.
ask.
Don't
Sorry.
even ask. Um, no.
Yeah, I assume similar for schools as well, right, Heather? Like, no, you can't get it back. Sorry, don't ask.
No, no, no. What we did is whenever I came in, we had moved the library from a temporary place on the gym stage into its own room. And so we had to completely reorganize the library. We had to order shelves and we had to do a huge weed. And some of the books that were in better condition were put on a cart outside the office for students to take if they wanted them. The other ones ended up being recycled.
Yeah,
But
recycling is
yeah,
big
you
too.
also don't take it hard if your book gets weeded, because just think about how many books are published literally every year, and we do, there's not an infinite amount of space. I wish that there was a library out there that just has an infinite amount of space with every book ever published. Library of Congress, maybe. um, but infinite, like we have a very small amount of space, and we want to keep up with the newest books and what students are interested in, and it's a rotation.
You can only do so
um
much. You can only do
yeah,
so
you can only
much.
do
Yeah.
so much.
So for the next question, we are shifting our focus to not just getting books into libraries, but having events at different kinds of libraries. So my next question is for events, what are some considerations to keep in mind before authors reach out to librarians?
Yeah, this is actually a pretty easy question to answer. The first thing you have to keep in mind is public libraries plan anywhere from 6 months to a year ahead of time. So, for example, summer reading program is one of the largest events that happen just across every public library in the United States. And that gets started planning at the end of the past summer reading program. So, other programming tends to for big events, you're looking at 6 months to a year. For smaller events, you're looking at 3 months to 6 months. Your best bet, there's a couple of things you can do. First, tie in your book to a specific event. So, when my short story came out in an anthology, a local library had me come in before Valentine's Day to do the author reading. And then I dressed up like very Valentine's-y. They had chocolate and they made it a very special event. Um, so think about stuff like that. So if you're writing horror, you might want to come in like in the fall or around Halloween. So always, if one good thing to add to your pitch is say, I'm available for events. These are the ideas that I'm having. Local authors are a big draw. We have in Michigan, we have what's known as the Michigan Notable Read. So this means that each library has an opportunity to bring the author in. So if you're doing some kind of local author event, that's also huge. The other thing is when you do your pitch, also say things like, I'm available for these events. I'm available to come in for an author signing. I'm available to come in for an author reading. That brings in a lot of the patrons to the library. So the libraries are always looking for new ideas. Lastly, I shouldn't say lastly. One thing to keep in mind though is don't reach the libraries until after your book has been published. So don't say, hey, my book is being published in January of 2027 and you're emailing them in June of 2026.
Mhm.
You want to you want to have the book already published, and the reason being is so that the library can get the book in the collection and start promoting it like crazy, especially if they're going to do a book club
Mhm.
around your book, which libraries will do. If they feel like it's a good mix for their collection, they may do a book club for you. So always offer to do that. And there is the last thing. There is a event called Indie Author Day, and it's done at libraries.
Mhm.
So what that happens is that libraries will put together a panel of local indie authors, and they will treat it just like an event.
Mhm.
So, for example, you could have 5 or 6 little indie authors. They can sell their books there. They can promote their other stuff, their backlist as well. If your local library doesn't have an Indie Author Day event planned, you can make that as part of your pitch and also say, hey, I know other local authors as well. Another thing to do that I just realized is get in touch with local writers groups. So I'm a member of the Michigan Romance Writers, and they're always looking for events. And I did some research, and I found a lot of libraries wanted to bring in more romance readers, primarily around the holidays. But they didn't know who to reach out to. So always reach out to a local writers group and see if they work with any libraries or other events that you can get your book into.
There's actually surprisingly a lot of opportunities for authors to work with school librarians and get events going on, because there are student you can actually, the more presence you have within the school, the more you work with the school, the more likely we are to stock your book. So we had a local author who teamed up with a student once a week, who was interested in writing, and he was a bit of a mentor. So he did like a mentorship where he talked to the student about writing books and stuff like that. There's classroom talks where you can come in and do a classroom talk or a visit. You can talk to book clubs, not only just book clubs, but like if you have a book related around STEM, there's STEM clubs, there's religious clubs on in schools. Kind of maybe check out their website and find out what extracurricular clubs they have available. Maybe you can pitch to a specific club.
Honor
Kind of like
societies.
similar to how Lisa said to see if you can work your book into an event. I know I was in charge of a lot of events when I worked actually at Barnes and Noble, and I had an author come in who has an entire book on prepping, and we worked it into a zombie themed event we had going on. So you can
I
get
used to work at Barnes and Noble.
Be creative,
yeah.
though.
Like
Look for those connections.
5 years.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think I before you actually come in to do an event or try to approach a librarian about an event, kind of I guess decide what kind of event you want to do and the logistics, and don't just narrow yourself down to like libraries in your area. You can do events across the country. For my school, we had a dystopian book club, and we had New York Times bestselling author Amy Ewing, who did the Jewel series. She did a Zoom call, a Zoom Q&A for our book club one afternoon, all the way from New York, and we were in Denver. So it's
Yeah.
possible. You also want to know kind of like what type of event you want. Do you want it going on during the school day, or is this like an after school, before school kind of situation? One great thing about doing an event at school as opposed to doing an event anywhere else is you don't have to worry about so much about if anybody's going to show up, because they're all legally required to be there.
And it's just permissions potentially that you have to worry about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also like if you're pitching your book at one of these things, if you're doing a book signing or Q&A, does library have it on stock? We didn't have Amy's books available at the time, so I ordered in books in anticipation for her event, and they were already checked out before the event even started. Like literally the day of the event, they were already checked out. So make sure you have books on hand. If you're coming in and you're wanting to sell books, definitely it'd probably be better like after school, but like if make sure you give enough time for parents to send money or whatever.
Mhm.
Make sure you have enough books on hand, because you're probably going to be the one bringing them. Yeah, if it's a community event, I would say if you wanted to do like something after school that would involve like parents also and people in the community or school staff, that needs way more planning than just showing up to seventh period English class. So definitely allowed more time for that.
Yeah. And
I don't think we don't plan out a year in advance.
Mhm.
Like I think my event with Amy was I think a month.
But still, time, you need to lead
Yeah,
time.
some time needs, yeah. Okay.
When I was a fiction lead at Barnes Noble, I was in charge of the entire fiction collection. But we worked with the community manager on bringing events in. So, for example, we did a lot of schools were reading Pride and Prejudice. So we did a tea with Jane Austen, and then I did the presentation about what a tea actually meant during Jane Austen's time. For Halloween, we had a local author come in who was like the carving king. So he would bring his tools and carve pumpkins at the same time selling his books. So yeah, like Heather said, there's a lot of opportunities that you can partner, even with bookstores, to
Mhm.
get your books onto the shelves. Heather added a lot of good information that also is applicable to public libraries as well. We have had authors who zoomed in for book club conversations. So if you do offer something like that, that's pretty cool. And we've actually had so I'm in northern Michigan, so I'm in the Pinky, and Detroit is down here. And we actually had an author contact us about doing a presentation at our library. And my director was open to it because it was related to something that we had going on. But that's a 4-hour drive.
Mhm.
So some libraries, I'm actually doing 2 presentations this fall at our libraries downstate, and they're paying for my mileage plus my fee. So that's something that to take in consideration. Like Heather said, like check your state and see if you can do that. The other thing too is I don't know if this is allowed in school libraries, but in public libraries, authors typically can sell their books. Definitely check with
Okay.
the event coordinator to make sure that can happen, and then make a decision on how you're going to handle cash. So, are you going to accept Venmo? Are you going to have Square? Are you going to have cash on hand to make change? I was at an author event that I was presenting at with other authors. I was set because I kind of knew ahead of time, but a couple other authors weren't. And so they ended up having to make arrangements to get paid for their titles. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, and
I know
I've
I know
seen,
we
oh,
didn't
go ahead.
work with an author to sell books in the library, but we have like book fairs and stuff. So I
Mhm,
do know that we have sold books in a school environment and parents just
mhm.
send money and work out that
Yeah.
way. So
Yeah, I've also seen library events where they partner with a bookstore to handle the sales
Yep.
transaction portion of it, where the library does the events essentially, and the bookstore, you then potentially the author would be the one who have to all figure this out, also, right? But a library maybe already has like a bookstore partner that they work with that you might be
Uh,
able to find out.
just about every library up here has a bookstore partnership with someone
There
for
you
the
go.
exact same reason. Yeah.
Yep.
So the with bookstores have similar. I know this is more about libraries, but just so you know, bookstores have similar setups as far as how they get titles as well. Um, and one thing that but bookstores will do is typically consignment.
Mhm.
So you sell to the you make your cash ahead of time by selling to the bookstore whatever you want to charge for the book, and then they price it appropriately and then sell it at the author events, however it's set up. But definitely do check bookstores and see if they have partnerships with libraries, because that is very helpful.
Those are all logistics that you, the author, have to figure out ideally beforehand if you
Yeah, once your
can.
book is published, you're not done. You're not even remotely done.
Yeah. And so this also then leads into the next question, which sort of echoes some of the previous ones, is then what information would the authors want to have on hand before you approach the library staff to put together an event at the library? And so it sounds like, is there a bookstore partner? All of the same stuff as for before for the book carrying the library, you'd want to potentially have all that as well, right? But then also just like what kind of event you want to hold, things like that, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
Heather, we'll start with you for school stuff. Like,
make sure that the community in which you are having an event for, make sure that there's no current bans, make sure that that you know the the library is willing to stock your book.
mhm.
If they're not willing to stock your book, they're probably not going to be bringing you in for an author event.
Yeah.
So just have open communication with the librarian,
Is
and the
there any
school.
background check or paperwork like that that's associated with schools specifically that you have to do or no?
Not that I'm aware of, but that might be a school district by school district, state by state
Yeah.
basis.
Because
This is
I know for field trips it can get very specific, but maybe not so much for library events.
Yeah, I would just check with the school and see if they would have anything in particular. I know you probably have to like sign in at the library or sign in at the office and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo everything Heather had said. Pretty much, instead of reiterating myself, everything we've said earlier about this whole process.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, yeah, I guess the thing that I would tell authors is, I've kind of been
joking about this through the entire our entire thing, but definitely you're going to have to do the work. You can't blindly accept things are going to happen because you have a book published. And that's from both a writer, a book collector, and as somebody who manages collections at a library. It's frustrating for us
Mhm.
if we lay out, because a lot of libraries will lay out how they want things done on their website. And if the author or whoever is promoting that title and they're not willing to follow our instructions,
Mhm.
I mean,
You're starting
we're
on the
not going
back
to,
foot. Yeah.
I
yeah,
mean, you kind of hear that also when you're in the querying process. Like one of the things that's like an instant, like you get to the scrap heap is if you don't follow the submission
mhm.
instructions. If you don't, you send something in a PDF and they don't want a PDF, they want it in like a Word document, or they only want 5 pages and you send them 20. Like follow instructions.
Yeah. You're busy.
We're
It's
all
respect for
readers
your
here.
time. Yeah. What is that process? And so it sounds like just go to the library website and see what process do they outline for you there and start from there.
A lot of libraries are being um, they're being very assertive about what they want,
Mhm.
and not in a mean way, but it goes back, and I'm sure Heather can agree to this. Budget, time, interest, what our patrons want. We can't entertain every book that comes through the process, and following the process laid out by the library helps a great deal.
Mhm.
And if no process is listed on the library's website, being respectful of that library's time
Mhm.
will also go a long way. And making sure that you have put together that sell sheet that Heather and I had talked about, where essentially it's your pitch on one page or less with everything about your book that the library can peruse and then make a decision from that. So, yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Yeah. And is there anything additional in terms of like reaching out to friends of the library possibly or other
Oh,
I just said the magic word because I got the
I'm
most
sorry.
and
Sorry. I'm so sorry. No, that is something I had forgotten about. Yes. But here's the catch. I know a lot of authors have an audience, or friends or family members or what have you, who are really passionate about that author, and they
Mhm.
want that author to succeed, and they want that author to get their books into libraries. But for the love of all that is holy, do not have um, your legion of fans approach libraries that are not in your community. And the reason being is that if the library gets undaunted with requests for a book, to them, that's an indicator, oh, we should carry this title. So
Mhm.
they get the title and they put it in circulation. Maybe they promote it somehow, like put it on a news shelf or on an end cap or what have you. And if the book never circulates, then the book will eventually get weeded and and the process that we've talked about earlier. 100%, I'm a big fan of letting libraries know if you're in the community. So don't do the library to service. And again, Heather and I have talked about this pretty extensively through this entire conversation. It's about respect.
Mhm.
You want that book to be successful, and you want that book to have an opportunity to go out into the world and get more readers, and then get the author's back. Is you just want that book to be successful. And by approaching libraries that are not in your community is kind of dishonest.
Yeah.
So
And it could work
that's what the
against
face
you.
was for.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I was thinking in terms of Friends of the Library, which is often like a unit in a library of
Mhm.
community who put stuff together and
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
oh,
No,
sorry.
but I think your point is really important because like if you have your fans, like you said, get your book into the library without having done your due diligence, without checking in advance if that's the kind of book that people in that library, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with bad circulation numbers that then could end up sabotaging you in future potentially, it sounds like.
Yeah, it can. I mean, to touch back to your question for the Friends of the Library, they have very
Mhm.
little input on what gets
Okay.
collected. That's the simple truth of it.
But they do hold
Um,
events or no, not so much.
the library, the Friends of the Library varies from library to library on
Mhm.
what they do.
Okay.
So for the library that I work at, they sponsor events, so they give the library money, but they don't really have a say in what the event is. It's basically the Friends of the Libraries is basically about promotion and getting donations to help promote and save the, I don't want to say save the library, but help promote
Yeah.
and support the library. And so, like, for example, for the book sales that happen in my particular library, it's once a year. All that money immediately goes right back into the library.
Mhm.
So they do a lot to do the support for the library, but as far as like collection development goes, they don't really have an input. So
Right.
approaching the Friends of the Library is
Mhm.
really kind of useless.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
it's more like once you've already done the event planning stuff
mm,
with the actual library, then potentially the Friends of the Library might be helpful for marketing and public facing stuff, but otherwise they're not going to be involved, and they may not be involved at all.
yeah,
Okay.
it's two I'm active in two libraries. The one that I work at and then the one that's close to me. And both friends do something completely different. So the
Hmm.
friends at the library that I work at, they do the book sale. They do a lot of small events where, for example, Friends of the Library Week, they brought in baked goods from a local bakery and also had coffee and water for the patrons. Say, hey, this is what the friends do. They also are the ones that do a lot of sponsorship of events, as well as they decorate for the holidays as well. So that's the friends take on kind of like a lot of that stuff.
All
And
right.
then the other friends group that I'm involved with, they do also the book sale. The money gets funneled back in. And they also do support of the programs as well. So they'll say, hey, programming librarian, we have this budget. So you don't have to take from the library's budget. We're going to give you the money to sponsor this event. And we are always, all friends libraries are always soliciting for donations and
Mhm.
always soliciting for volunteers because there's a lot to do.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Um,
I wonder, Heather, then does like the PTA or other parent groups potentially work is similarly for event coordination, organization, getting the word out, or are they usually more hands off?
I mean, I I didn't work personally with the
Mhm.
PTA. Most of my
So
like
probably more hands off,
I
yeah.
was the one that made most of the decisions when it came to books coming in
Mhm.
and whatnot. And from what I hear, most of the time when it's the PTA gets involved, it's about a book they want to take out, not put in.
Oh, yeah, not fun. Okay, let's not go there. We're going to keep this positive. Is there anything else that you wish more authors knew about working in libraries that we have not touched on yet?
Well, I do want to. I know we wanted to move on from book bans, but they
Oh
are
no, it's fine.
a reality we have to deal with. There are a couple of organizations you can, if you have want to fight book bans, or you have a book yourself that you want to put out there that has been banned. I know there's Authors Against Book Bans, and there's Pan America. And if you find that yourself a subject of a book ban, you could always report that book ban to either Pan America or the American Library Association. They track book bans, and also just get engaged locally with, if show up to the PTA meetings, the school board meetings, team up with the librarian who obviously believed in your book enough to put it in the library to begin with, um, to back your book at one of these events. I know one of the biggest rules of it, like principles that librarians have, is every reader a book, every book a reader, and every reader a book. Like, we want to have a diverse collection, and most librarians are I'd say a vast majority of librarians are so opposed to book bans. We will go to bat for you if we need to. So yeah, just check out those organizations you can get involved in, and also, not on a school librarian no, but on a public or research librarian no. Public libraries have, as a researcher myself, because I do an extensive amount of research, not just with historical research for the company I work with, we create historical primary source databases for research. But I'm also a genealogist, so I do a lot of genealogy. Libraries are gold mines for genealogy. So if you're writing something like a historical fiction or anything, your public library is a gold mine. You can go back and look at census data. You can look back at old imprints, old ephemera. Sometimes they have directories of the local areas, like a city directory that has like addresses of what businesses were in town and all that stuff. New old newspaper collections, and not only do they have databases for that, but they also, a lot of libraries have that stuff in their genealogy or local history collection. So it is a gold mine research if you're doing any kind of historical research for either historical nonfiction or historical fiction, that I definitely encourage, because that kind of primary source information is just the thing that would set your book apart, that make it more believable, I guess.
Don't ask Chat GPT, ask a
Oh.
librarian.
Oh my God. Yes. So to bounce off of Heather, pretty much everything she said is applicable to public libraries. One thing that I will add is you do not have the say on where the book is shelved, or if the book is displayed or not. And I need to make that really clear, because we have come into that where an author has said, hey, my book is this, but we know based upon our community needs, it's going to work better shelved over here. Each library actually shelves titles differently. So, for example, in our library, we have fiction. Fiction is hardcover and trade, but we actually have a separate paperback fiction section. So those are separated out. Mystery has its own collection. Sci-fi and fantasy has its own collection, but romance does not. Romance gets shelved into our
Huh.
fiction collection. We don't have a large. I have been working with I've been working. My director is the one who does the purchasing for our library, and she has slowly started bringing in more romance into the collection. Um, for example, I got her to get the Bridgerton collection into the library because I'm like, hey, season 4 is out, popular on Netflix. People are aware of it. I think this is going to circulate. And she was kind of like, all right, fine. And I did a display of it when season 4 came out, and the books in the entire collection circulate pretty heavily. So you never know. But yeah, so each library shelves completely different. Don't make an assumption. You just have to trust what the library says. One thing that is not part of this conversation, but is one of my biggest pet peeves,
Mhm.
is do not donate your books. So I'm not talking about the books you have written, but the books you want to ditch from your house to a library unless they call for it, because there's a lot of reasons for this. The currency of the book. So we're not going to take old encyclopedias, old dictionaries, what have you. The condition of the book, whether or not the book is going to work in our collection, whether or not the book is going to be appropriate for our collection.
Mhm.
We have a lot of patrons who dump their excess collection into our book drops, and they immediately either get recycled or they get tossed, because a lot of times the books aren't in circulation ready. There is a reason why we have specific days to dump your collection on us, done by the friends. So don't assume just because you have a book, the library is going to take it. And again, I know this is completely out of the realm of the conversation,
No,
but as
no,
somebody
it's
who,
good. This is the
um,
title of the thing is what you want writers to know.
yeah, because we're a small enough library, we do not have a newspaper collection. And you would be surprised by the number of people who get upset that we won't take their old newspaper collections.
If you want to donate something, do your research. Again, do your
Yeah.
research first.
Yeah, every library has a completely different setup on how they do book donations. Um, We had I was cleaning out the book drop one day. This was about a year ago. Somebody had come in and filled the entire book drop with their collection, and we end up tossing probably around 90% of it. And the rest went into the friend's book sale. So you're creating more work for us. Trust me, if we want the book, we'll buy it. So yeah, please read, the library's website to see when they do accept book donations. Yeah, so that's my little pet peeve and
No, it's
my
good. It's
rant.
good because I'm sure that on the side of the writers, we also don't want to put our books in a book drop and then have them get thrown away. That is like a horror story. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's a good point. Don't like if you That's a very good point actually, Valerie, is if you want to donate your book to the library, don't put it in the book drop with the sell sheet because we're going to do nothing with it. You need to talk to an actual human. And to reiterate, the human you're talking to at the circulation desk is not going to be the person who does the book collecting.
mhm.
So you need to keep that in mind because I'm not the collection development at my library. And the number of times authors have come to me and started their spiel without asking to speak to that person is insane. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind as well.
Yeah. Final question. Any additional resources? What additional resources then do libraries offer that authors can take advantage of in terms of submitting books, planning events, or just in general? Heather, you already mentioned a lot of the research portions of it, but are there any other resources that authors could potentially take advantage of that are very useful to just writers or specifically?
Not school librarian wise, but I'm also a patron of the public libraries. A lot of a lot of public libraries have um, classes and events going on. So, and sometimes they're geared towards writers.
Mhm.
Like they might have a writers group that meets at the public library. So be sure to always check your public library's website, see if there's any writing events happening on. Great opportunity to network.
Mhm.
If you have a book about gardening and they're having a gardening event, you might not you might not be pitching your book at it, but you're making acquaintances, you're talking to people. View it as a networking opportunity, and also just a really fun way to meet people who are into gardening.
Make friends.
Yeah. Yeah, Heather actually did a good point. In addition to library, so the location where I'm at has a very active artist communities across the counties, the 5 county area where I'm at. And a lot of them do writer panels and a lot of them do their own like author readings and signings and stuff. Granted, a lot of it has to do with local interest or
Mhm.
a local author. So that is definitely another avenue you can work with because one artist collective in the village where I go to get my books works with the local library in conjunction for their events.
Mhm.
So definitely check out local artist collectives as well in your area
Mhm.
for those kind of resources. And then just to kind of promote libraries in general, libraries have a million resources that are free to the public. I actually gave a spiel to a new patron yesterday, and he was floored by how much of it was free.
Mhm.
And a nice thing that's happening now is that libraries are going away with fines. So, because it was an income barrier, it was very discriminatory to populations that weren't getting access to the library. So, fines for the most part have been waived. So, in addition to some of the access that Heather have mentioned, you have interlibrary loans, so you can get books across the state. You have digital access to libraries through Libby and Hoopla. There's Canopy, which is essentially Netflix for libraries. There are accesses to all different types of databases that your library has access to. Heather's databases might be some of those examples for larger library systems.
Mhm.
They partner with other libraries for events. There's also the events that Heather had mentioned that libraries do programming and events. The larger the library, the more events that's going to happen. So if you live in an area that you can get access to a larger library system, like for me, the next county over has a larger library system than where I'm at, and they're constantly having events. Do not be afraid to, if you are a writer and there's no writers group at your local library, to propose one, because they will definitely, they'll do a couple of things. The library, if they accept it, will promote it, which gets more authors in the door. And it builds a connection with you in the library, and it'll make it a lot easier if you do have titles that are published to get your books into the library itself. So definitely work those connections and network like crazy, because it will help considerably.
Yeah, because events don't have to just be you personally showing up with your books to do a reading, a signing, whatever. It can be panels, it can be workshops, it can be topical presentations, it can be a lot of stuff.
Yeah, just to bounce off like Heather's example of the gardening, I mean, we had a presentation done by somebody who wrote a book on mushrooms. So we had a complete event based upon fungi. And the person that did the event also wrote books on fungi.
Mhm.
So not only did they present like the super fun way that what you can do with mushrooms, like other than eat them, they also were able to promote their book, and the book got in the library.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
My local library also has, again, if you're a writer and you need to do research, my local library has tickets you can check out to the aquarium or the
yep.
zoo or other, the theater sometimes even. So there's a lot there that you may not know is there unless you
And
go.
it's free.
And it's free. JSTOR access. How many times have you tried to look up an article online and been like, oh, I can't because I don't have JSTOR access. Big libraries
But
don't have
okay,
it.
big libraries do have JSTOR access, which is fantastic, especially if you're doing research. But I do want to promote that JSTOR allows public access and you can get up to 100 articles. But yes, the premium access you have to get through a library.
Mhm.
And if you're doing something that requires a lot of research, that is a boon.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Plus, there's so many databases that are out there that it's insane, and a
Mhm.
lot of libraries have access to it. And the best part is all the digital stuff you can access at home.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you have this wild desire to write, I don't know, historical romances, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you have access to a local library that has those databases you can get information from, you are set.
Not
So
not to name
Yeah.
drop, but Newsbank and Redex has a large collection of newspapers, and they're only available. You can't like get them at, individuals can't get them. They're only available at libraries and universities and schools.
mhm,
So uh, lot easier, a lot freer if you go to your local library and have access to all those newspapers than like having, if you can't afford like a newspaper.com subscription or something like that.
And if you're
yeah,
not
newspaper.
sure, ask a librarian.
Mm.
Almost every library site has an Ask a Librarian link. So whether it's an email or a chat bot, there is a website called, I think, Valerie, I will email it to you.
Sure.
It's called askalibrarian.org.
Mhm.
And it is staffed 24 hours a day from librarians from across different disciplines. So you have both school, you have independent, you have academic, you have public, what have you, and they will help you with your question for free. So if your library is small like mine, that doesn't necessarily have that kind of option, you can go to askalibrarian.org and they will more than happy to help you and point you in the right direction. So and just think, Chat GPT can't do any of this. So
Could
or any
never.
Gen I. So yeah,
Nope. All right. Any final thoughts for us before we close out the panel? It's been so informative.
this is general information about libraries, and this is not necessarily pet peeve. I think this is more about general information.
Sure.
So libraries are supported in a variety of different ways by millages, by taxes, um, by their own fundraising, what have you. Because their promotion and their availability is for the community, you will typically need some sort of identification that shows that you are in the community to get a library card. Now, you can get a lot of libraries offer temporary cards. So, for example, I live in a high tourist area. So, if you are a tourist, we will give you a temporary library card. It's good for 3 months, but it is renewable, but it greatly shortens what you can get. So, for example, a regular patron can check out up to 70 items, whereas a temporary patron can check out only 6. A temporary patron does not have access to Libby or Hoopla, whereas a regular patron does. So for our temporary cards, they're free. Some libraries, like Queens Library in New York, offer digital only access to libraries, or digital access to their library. So out of state, out of community, I don't know how they term it, for like $50 a year. So if you were a researcher and you wanted to get your fingers into larger databases, that's another option to go as well. Don't get upset if don't get upset if the library won't give you a card. They do have valid reasons why. Please make sure to bring some sort of piece of identification. It varies from library to library. So that's something you're going to definitely want to check before you venture out. It is more than likely going to be on the library's website. There's a lot of opportunities to get access to larger library systems, but again, you're going to have to pay. If you are a huge user of Libby or Hoopla, or there is Mango and Rosetta Stone also have library services, and those are like to learn languages. So there's a lot of databases that you can get access to through larger library systems, but for a fee. Libraries use circulation counts to justify why they have what they have. You also have to keep in mind that library materials can be expensive. A lot of public libraries I worked at don't buy library binding books because we do the binding ourselves to make sure the books can stay in circulation for a longer time. So be very mindful of how you're treating the books. If you are working books, whether you're a bookseller or a librarian, or somehow you're connected with books, I like to irritate people by telling them I crack spines on my paperback. And yeah, see, I get that reaction. I'm like, it's my book, and I think it's easier for me to read. And it's not going to the library, so I can do whatever I want. And again, it's the media, not the message. Heather had mentioned every reader its book and every book its reader. That is actually Ragathon's laws of library science, and there's 5 of them. And I can't remember the other 3, but those are 2, and we just run them together. But when you go to library school, that's one of the things they teach you is Ragathon's laws of library science. So
make sure you actually skim your house before the end of the school year to make sure that there's not any library books under your kids' beds.
Check
And please, please,
backpacks.
please send them back to the school.
Yeah. Oh goodness, yes.
Because I don't want to have to,
Oh,
like, at the end of the school year, have to like corral all the students that have library books that have been out since September.
yeah, that's a very good point. Since we do work with local schools, we make sure to remind the teachers to get their books back to us. Because like I said, we have the Montessori school that uses us. We also have the public school also uses us. But here's a big thing. So we don't have fines. A lot of libraries don't have fines. But if you damage or lose the book, you are paying for it, and it will go on your account. And I need to stress that because we've had people who do interlibrary loans and also taken out our books and think for some magical reason they can keep them. When you're doing interlibrary loan, the lending libraries tend to be very generous with time, because you can check out in the state of Michigan, you can check out interlibrary loans for up to 2 months. But I will get emails from those libraries saying, "Hey, this book hasn't been returned. Can you talk to the patron?" And I had to send a very stern email to a patron because she had 2 books out for 90 days past their due date. And they were expensive books. And if we would have gotten the bills for the books, they would have been applied to her account. and she wouldn't be able to use interlibrary loan or check out titles until she paid the amount.
Yikes, yikes.
Shockingly, the book showed up in our book drop the very next day. So, surprise. So yeah, be mindful of titles and getting them back on time, because there's going to be other patrons, especially for new books, that are going to be waiting to want to read it. And there's always the option to renew. So don't feel like you have to have 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever the time is. But yeah, just be mindful and respectful of the materials and of the people who work with them.
Awesome. So thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. Super appreciate your time and taking so many of us through this walk, through the library, through the system, through how things work. Uh, I'm sure that many here are here taking copious notes on exactly how to proceed going forward. So thank you so much. So now I'm going to ask to please let people know where they can find you online so that they can check out your work, check out your libraries potentially, and just maybe connect and network and meet cool new people. So, where can people find you online?
I'm on Instagram and Threads at HM Joinville. And yeah, and I also have a historical blog that I write for work at readx.com/blog. Looking under Heather Joinville for there, and I write anything from morbid history about cults to the Electoral College, women's history, pretty much anything. I cover a lot of ground.
Awesome. And Lisa, where can folks find you online?
You can find me at Heroine in a Book on Instagram and Threads. I am more active on Blue Sky, and I'm more active on a couple other places. So if you go to my name, lisaraby.com, I had to like figure out which side to point to. Um, that's essentially my link in bio, and that will take you to all the places that I'm located at, which is way easier than
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So lisaraby.com is where you can find me.
Perfect, perfect. And I have been your moderator for today. I'm Valerie Valdes. You can find me at valerievaldes.com. And you can also find me on Blue Sky at Valerie Valdes. And I'm on Instagram, Valerie Valdes Author. So thank you so much again. Please, everyone here, enjoy the rest of your Right Hive 2026. And we look forward to seeing you all at the library.